Welcome to 80s TV Ladies. I'm Sharon Johnson.
And I'm Susan Lambert-Haddam. Welcome to part 2 of our interview with Cagney and Lacey producer and creator Barney Rosenzweig.
In our last episode, we talked with Barney about how he got started in the entertainment industry and some of his early work in publicity on Ben-Hur and other MGM movies. And then how he moved from publicist to producer.
And we're going to dive right back into this interview. And if you haven't listened to part 1, check out the first part or listen out of order and it'll be just like time travel. A little info about this episode. We had a fantastic conversation with Barney, but there were technical difficulties within this episode. With part 1 and part 2 of Barney's interview, we've done our best with the existing audio.
There are transcripts that will be available for our episodes within 2 weeks of episode launch, so you can read the interview. But bear with us and know that we are doing everything we can to keep this show sounding better and better. So here comes part 2 of Cagney and Lacey and Barney.
So you make this TV movie. It's a huge, huge hit. Then what happens?
Well, I'm called into Harvey Shepard's office, head of the network. Can you turn this into a series? I said, watch me. He said, how quick can you deliver? This is October. I knew that on May 1st, he was going to be in New York for the decision making. I said, I can be on the air March 15th.
That's not a lot of time, dear.
No, it's not a lot. We had to be in production no later than January and making the air dates of the last couple of episodes. And I said, oh, there's one caveat. I said, I don't have a Cagney unless you want to let Loretta out of Nashville. And he laughed. No. He says, I had a Cagney. I had met Harvey Shepard once before in my life, and it wasn't particularly warm. Harvey Shepard, well, Hador, is not warm and fuzzy kind of guy. He said, this guy's willing to put his career on the line because he'll never work here again if he doesn't deliver.
No pressure. You have like no months to put this show together.
So we began to write. I got Barbara Abbott on. Barbara Abbott was going to be my story editor. Can't find anybody to hire. Every good writer in town is on a contract to a studio or doing shows. All the good writers are on a good show. Also, even if they're not on a show, I'm hiring a writer for 6 episodes. Other people are hiring them for pilots for 22 episodes. The difference is money is substantial. The 22 shows, there's residuals. 22 shows, there's foreign markets. The 6 shows, that's all there is. That's all there is. But I had Barbara Abbott. I then hired Jack Gus. He was my best writer on Daniel Boone. And he brought in a pal of his, Freddie Freiberg. So here I am with 2 guys who are older than me, writing about young women they know nothing about. I need that first script. I need a script to show to other writers so they know what we're doing. There's no real pilot. I'm not doing the movie. Doing something more contained. So I invent. I walk in one day like Moses. I say, we're going to have A story, B story, C story, D. A is a primary crime story featuring one of the 2 women. B is a personal story featuring the woman who isn't featured in A. C is a personal story featuring the woman who isn't featured in B. D are comic runners. Armed with that, we began to try to hire writers. I'm still waiting for Barbara Abbott on the script. One day I find out she's called Harvey Shepard and says, do you want it good or do you want it Tuesday? We'll deliver this show in June. In June, I have pledged March, and there is no June. June is summertime. There's no season in June. I fired Barbara Abbott on, and we began coming up with scripts. And they're pretty good. There's a couple of scenes that I'm very proud of. We did a show where Lacey talks to Harvey about an abortion she had, an ancient mariner life. She tells the story, even though Harvey's heard of it. She's compelled to tell the story. What happened to her? At the end, he says, honey, it'll never be like that again. She says, it'll be exactly like that.
Wow. And
it's chilling. It was chilling when we did it, and it's chilling today. We did sexual harassment in the workplace. We did a woman's right to abortion. We did wife batterings. We did all those.
Breast cancer, rape, alcoholism. You were talking about these issues in 1984, 1982.
That unfortunately are still issues today.
Absolutely.
We didn't solve any of them. We sure expressed them. Women loved us.
You've cast Meg Foster as a new Cagney.
Yes. My first choice. She was the first woman to come in, and I said, that's cool.
A fabulous actress.
I thought, and she was real. I loved her verisimilitude. I went in with 5 other actresses. Audition for read for the network. Harvey Shepard said, which one do you like? I said, Meg Foster. He says, okay, Meg Foster's it. I was, that was feeling good. The next day, Harvey Shepard called me up, cold feet. He's gotten a call from Susan Clark's agent. Susan Clark's a television star, not in series. She does only classy movies. Stuff here. But she might be interested in playing this. So I'm arguing for my choice. I was just, look, just meet her. She won't read, which is admittedly a disadvantage, but meet her. So I'll do better than meet her. I'll go to her home and I'll take Ty Daly with me. And Ty will meet her too. See how the chemistry is between her. I had Ty read the other 6 women from the network. So without calling too much attention to it, sort of positioned the room. Ty and Susan were sitting together. I could watch them while I'm talking to her husband. Her husband is a former All-American football player who I gave his first job to as an actor on Daniel Boone.
Nice.
We have things to talk about.
Yeah.
And so we're having a pleasant time. But all out of the corner of my eye, I'm watching. Susan Clark is a superior actress. And the 2 women were getting along great. They could talk about the theater. They could talk about careers. They had a lot in common. The next day I go into Harvey's office. And I said, what I just said, she's substantial. She's substantive. She's real. He says, oh, great. I said, only a couple of problems. I said, what's that? I said, we have to rename the series and we have to set it in Kansas instead of New York. He said, what are you talking about? I said, Barb, they're sisters. It's Lacey and Lacey. There's no contrast. She's never going to be street. She's never going to be urban. She's a country girl. I'll make that show if you want, but it's not the show you want. And he calls up his head of casting. Gene, I'm having a discussion with Barney Rosenzweig. I want to know how you would vote. You want his choice, Meg Foster, or my choice, Susan Clark? He guesses Meg Foster. And he says, okay, you're cast. That's how Meg Foster. Well, they started making the show. Got nice directors. Again, tough to get the best directors because the best ones are on shows with a 22-show order. But directors, you can hire more on a one-on-one basis. So we're making shows, and I think they're pretty good. Harvey Shepard is guaranteeing us a hit because he's going to put us on after Magna PI at 9 o'clock at night. We had a Magna PI. This is ahead of it. No, I
think it's behind, after.
Behind Magna PI?
Magnum, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock.
That was the lead-in. Okay. So we got a lead-in of the biggest success on CBS. A show that does a 34, 35 share every week, coming off of a movie with a 48 share. All of Madison Avenue is writing about this is a hit, guaranteed hit show. Expectation level is phenomenal. Easy beat 30 to 40 share. Go on the air, and we get Parrot a 38 share and promptly plummet to a 22 share. A movement of seismic proportion. It had to be an aberration. It meant the power must have gone out in 6 Nielsen cities in certain homes, and they just were disconnected. Something bad happened. Nobody panicked. Next week, same thing, and the same result. Inherit a 38 share, all to a 24 share. Except 2 shows. Harvey Shepard asked me on the phone. He says, you are canceled. And I said, I understand. And I said, when are you putting on in place of the get? He says, oh, we got a show. We canceled
another canceled show.
Another canceled show. 2 male cops. I forget their names.
2 male detectives. Simon and Simon.
Simon and Simon. Interesting enough, proves a point. Simon and Simon was a failure Tuesday nights at 9 o'clock and a hit Wednesday nights at 10 o'clock. What does that tell you? Time spot means something. Audience flow means something. Mm-hmm. I call back Harvey Shepard. I said, Harvey, we made a mistake. This is not a show to follow Magna PI. This is not a show for teenagers. So it's a show for adult women. But I think we want it. I said, we're a 10 o'clock show. We should be on at 10 o'clock and not on after these male cop shows. We're not lights and sirens. We're doing something else. He says, Barney, you're canceled. I said, Harvey, don't you guys have research? He says, what research? He knows my wife works at ABC. I said, ABC has research. Don't you guys have research? It's a show for women and adult women. So I'm making this up. It's not true. I'm making it up.
But it was true.
It turns out to be true. Wasn't true at that time. But anyway, I said, look, give me 2 shows. Give me 2 shows, and I'll come out with a campaign. It says Cagney and Lacey are back to back. I'll send them all over the country. I'll spend $25,000 of my own money. She says, save your money. I said, Harvey. He says, why are we discussing this? I said, we're not discussing it. We're having an argument. I want something and you won't give it to me. He says, I'm not going to give you 2 shows. I said, okay, I'll take 1. I'm not giving you Sunday night. I said, I'll take Monday night. Do it to me during reruns. I can't hurt you. Do it when there's nobody watching. Okay, he says. Monday night, in the middle of a dead Nielsen week, no sweeps, no nothing going on, nobody cares. I get a 35 share. Harvey Shepard calls me in. You know, there are naysayers at this network who will say you did this against reruns. You did this during a dead period. I'm not going to say that. You took on a challenge and you pulled it off. Now, I'm going to go back to New York and propose that we have this on the fall schedule. He said, I need some stuff. I said, what do you need? He said, I said, you need a list of writers, directors? I don't know. I trust you to make a good show. He said, this is not our old argument. I don't think the chemistry with the 2 women is working. Work with Loretta Switt, it doesn't work. They're too similar. They're too street. CBS in New York said they were too butch. Some executive in New York called them.
Oh, wow.
That was pleasant.
Did you agree with him?
No, I didn't. I said, look, I'll change your hair. I'll dye blonde. He says, Barney, I want it recast. So I agree. You take a 6-show order. The difference is between a 13-show order and a 6-show order is substantial. And, the cost of toilet paper gets amortized, divided by 6 instead of by 13. Toilet paper costs a lot more money per episode. Everything costs more money per episode. A show. Most expensive item on a budget is not the actor. It's not the director. It's the amortization account. That's the rent. It's the toilet paper. It's electricity. That's the cost of gasoline. The cost of doing business. That's the most expensive signal. You can divide that item by a higher number. Each episode becomes 2. So I agreed to the 6, and that's how we went.
So you came back, but then they said you got 22 in your next season.
So I agreed to 6, but he gave me an order on the fall for 13. A 13-show order for the fall, contingent upon the recasting of Meg Foster. I said, thank you. I said, they'll never tell you what's on the schedule. They're going to announce that officially in a couple of days. I asked one question. I said, is House Calls on the schedule?
And why were you interested in House Calls?
House Calls starred an actress. Her name was Sharon Bless. Well, I had offered the part twice before and had never accepted because she was never available. She was either in a series or in a contract to Universal. I knew Monique James, who was the head of talent at Universal there. We had talked on the phone many times. I'd never met her. We were chatting. I was talking about, it's too bad she's in House Calls. She said, well, it's true, but boy, when House Calls is over, she's no longer under contract. I'm leaving Universal with her. I'm going to become her manager, and she's going to be in it. So I knew that piece of information. I didn't think much of it, but I knew it. When I got the order, I asked about House Calls. She said, no, I can't talk anymore about it. I then called my mother, called my wife. She went back on the plane. The head of CBS in the West Coast was on the plane, sitting near her. And she said, well, what's going on? She says, Cagney Lacey made the schedule. So I knew that. You should have asked me. You was going to tell her. So then I called Ronnie Meyer, who was then CAA and head of, he was the agent for Sharon Bless. And I said, Ronnie, I'm calling to inquire about the availability of Sharon Bless playing the title role of television series Cagney Lacey, 13-show order for the fall on. He said, she's not available. She's doing House Calls. I said, you got bet me she's doing House Calls. That show has been canceled.
That's a favorite moment for a producer, to have a piece of information that no one else has.
Yeah. I knew, for once in my life, I knew something Ronnie Meyer didn't know months before. At any rate, that began a long period of very, very serious, difficult, troubled, come to me, go from me, painful times. We finally got it done.
And what an amazing show. 2 women Basically for another 6 seasons, so 125 episodes?
125 episodes. They call it 7 seasons because the way they futz around with it, but it was really 6 years.
6 years.
It was really 5 seasons with Sharon, plus 119 episodes with Sharon.
Winning 14 Emmys.
Plus the one with the, I've got a couple of women, no one ever won an award as actress, except Cagney and Sharon. When the show was over, actresses all over Hollywood.
Like my time.
To church. The star of a couple of stories. When Helen Mirren won the Emmy for Prime Suspect, she went on the stage, held her Emmy aloft, and her first words, "Thank you, Cagney Lacey." When Sharon met her for the first time in a theater in New York, Mirren got down on her hands and knees. The star of
Rizzoli and Isles.
Rizzoli and Isles, thank you. The guy who played Rizzoli came up to Sharon and Musso and Franks, unannounced, said, "You paved the roads on which I walk." It was serious stuff. He did really good. Really good. Very proud of it. It made me well. Not so much financially, although it helped. It made me well emotionally. I had been through before that so many hard times. You heard all my triumphs, all those stories I told you about USC, MGM, and Daniel Root. That's my greatest hits. Then came a period of darkness, cast out in the desert. At the point, literally, where I was going to flip a coin, whether I was a bartender or a taxi driver. I would never go back to press agent. I knew that I couldn't. Wouldn't do it. And my career was basically over. I had been maligned. I cheated. I had been hurt badly. Still have some of the scar tissue. But I figure I'm even. And I worry about that because I know people who are smarter than I am, talented than I am, and worked every bit as hard as I did. Never had a Cagney Lacey. And I don't know what happens to them. I don't know how they sleep at night. It's a tough business. It is a brutal business. And it ain't for sissies.
They tried to cancel you again, right?
Oh, many things. Yeah, sure.
You were always on the chopping block for some reason.
No, we never were. Nobody ever said you're a hit, until the very end. We went on the air. We did 13 episodes. They were good. Army Shepherd loved them. We did well. We were good counter programming to football. We did fine. Army Shepherd took me to lunch and said, "Barney, keep this up. Get anything above a 26 share, golden for the next year." 26 share seemed doable. We were getting 28s, 30s. Football went off the air, and in its place, ABC came on with Anne Margaret giving away her children from her deathbed. The Thornbirds. Heavy duty stuff. Big pictures. The audience for Cagney Lacey was not only adult women, they were upperly mobile, intelligent, college-educated, free thinkers. They figured it out. You can watch Cagney Lacey in reruns during the summer. I want to see the Thornbirds tonight. And our ratings plummeted. And we were cast. Not abruptly like we were before. Army Shepherd called me up very nicely. "Barney, this is the most painful phone call I've ever had to make. I love the show. No, I love the show. And you did a great job." He was very sincere. He said he didn't think the show could be made any better than I made it. And to please know how grateful he was. But that it was business and he had to guess. I took it well. I went to see Dick Rosenblum, tell him, called my mother, I called Ty Daly, called my wife, couldn't reach Sharon. It's on location in a movie with New Orleans. I went back to the hotel and somebody came up to me and said, "I hear you got cast. Sorry to hear." Oh my God, other people knew. I thought I was so painful. I had to distract myself. I went to the theater. I went to see 9, which is the musical version of Fellini's 8.5, story about a tortured filmmaker. Why I picked that show, I do not know. I couldn't stand it. I sat there. By the way, it's a wonderful show. I found out later when I saw the movie. But that night, forget about it. I walked out of the theater, sick, went to Frankie and Johnny's, went upstairs to the bar and started hitting the martinis. And finally, on the payphone with the bar, got a hold of Sharon Glass. And the two of us got drunk over the phone together as we commiserated. And when I came back to LA, my assistant brought in a box, small thing, 15, 20, maybe 24 letters. Not even 24 letters. And they were interesting because they weren't written in crayon. Not saying I kissed my pillow every night, please send me your picture. These were good stationery, well written, many of them typed letters, thanking me for the show, saying how excited they were to have the show on the air, how wonderful it was, what it meant to them. It was clearly letters that had been written and sent before the cancellation. So I took the time and I wrote each of these people individually. And I thanked them for their support, and I thanked them for their good wishes. But unfortunately, not in my control. The show weren't enough of them. And I sent these letters off. And shortly thereafter, within a day, maybe two, a guy came in from CBS with a large box, maybe 2 boxes. I forget that large box, over 1,000. I reached in, arbitrarily picked up a couple. These two, good stationery, typewritten, intelligent people, no Crayola. But these people were pissed off because the show had been canceled. It had written to CBS. CBS's policy is send it to the producer. So I got it. So what am I going to do? I can't write all of these letters. I'm going to spend the rest of my life writing letters. So I composed a form letter, thanking them for their support, tried our best, took a good shot. Please keep watching television, keep demanding good stuff. It will happen. And then I got a mischievous moment, which I do every now and then. Gotta be careful when I'm writing, because I start getting clever, cute. I can't help myself. And I said something to the effect, if you're still upset with all this after reading my letter, and I apologize for being a form letter, explaining it so many, but so if you're still upset, my strong suggestion is don't write to them. They don't read their mail. Write to the New York Times. Write to the Los Angeles Times. Write to your local newspaper. The theory being, they may not read their mail, but you do read the newspaper. And off they went. Ryan would not give me the money. Well, Phil Boyce has now become a Ryan, but he would not give me the money. Stamps. We had 40 or 50 stamps in house. I bought the rest of the stamps. It was hundreds of dollars. It was a lot of. Within weeks, both the New York Times and the Los Angeles Times came out with big stories about these canceled cops. McDonald, who was the TV editor for the New York Times, said this is clearly orchestrated by producer Barney Rosenzweig. But it doesn't matter. These people still had to write more than one letter. It's a grassroots movement. It's authentic. Calls I started getting from Oregon, from Michigan, everywhere, all over the country. Eventually, Harvey Shepard referred to it as an avalanche of mail. People were calling me up. What are you going to do about this? What does CBS say? I said, this isn't going to say anything. They don't change their minds. That never happened. Never has happened. I'm now on a dubbing stage, dubbing a movie of the week that I made. All this was going on. I don't have multiple lines. I got one phone line, and I'm working. My wife is at the beach. I go down on weekends or nights when I'm done work. At one point, I'm standing out in front of my house. There's a threat of a high tide at my house I've rented, and I'm still putting up sandbags. And a reporter comes along, USA Today, sees me doing this. I look pretty careful. I got a cigar in my mouth and a Panama hat on, and I'm putting it. And I say, we could survive anything but a direct hit. And they found out who I was. They put me on the front page of USA Today, color picture. And they come out, CBS canceled cops #1, got to be the highest rated show in the summer against baseball, against the proper counter program. Nobody has seen the original shows. These were all for reruns, but nobody had seen them before. We're doing great against number 10, number 9, 8, and #1. CBS calls me up. Before we're nominated for some Emmys. All this was going on. And I go in to pitch Harvey something. And I decide I got nothing to pitch. What am I going to say? They're never going to buy the show again. I'll save my ammunition for another day. I'll just go in and say, hello, I want to thank you experience. And happy Rosh Hashanah, almost Jewish holiday. And he says, it's pretty crazy what's happening, isn't it? It's avalanche of bail. I said, yeah. Says, what do you think the chances are of bringing it back? I said, Harvey, you're asking me. He said, no, but can you put it back together? Harvey's boss calls me and says, I have this vision. You're going to win the Emmy. And when you get up there to win the Emmy, hold the Emmy aloft and you announce the comeback on CBS. I said, but it's all very well and good. I appreciate the sentiment. I hope I win the Emmy. But let me tell you, it ain't going to get done that fast. I have fired everybody. Sets have been dismantled. I have no contract with Cheryl Lester Titanian. Think they're going to be difficult to negotiate with? It's going to take a while. It'll get done, but it's going to take a while. And sure enough, it did take a long while. And they, within what Ryan, in its typical clumsy, unsophisticated fashion, shot their bolt the first offer. When the women countered, they had nothing left to give. Ultimately came together and made the show. Then we made it for 13 episodes and did well. But always in increments, 7 shows, 13 shows. No one ever said, 22, go with God, have a good time, knock yourself out. Until the last 2 years. By the last 2 years, I could do anything I wanted. It was a very, very happy period. Very happy. Complicated by my personal issues, personal problems. Because with success always comes something, there's always some problem. I had an affair with my leading lady. Probably one of the dumbest things anybody could ever do, especially in a 2-woman show. And I was married. And married to not only a very powerful woman in business, but a very popular woman. And my one-time partner in business. Complicated. So that kind of sullied or colored the last years. But otherwise, it was absolute heaven. Absolute heaven.
Okay, so we're going to take a little break and come back and a few more questions. I'm so excited, but we are going to take a little break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're going to dive right back into this interview because we still have so much to talk about.
There you go.
Anyway, we finished the show and went out winners. And I'm 31 years later, I'm still married to my star. And very happily so. And life goes on.
What an incredible journey.
Fantastic.
It was that, yeah. We never got a chance to talk about Rosie O'Neill.
I noticed in the pilot episode of Rosie O'Neill, I just want to point out that the pilot episode of Rosie O'Neill is about a young, homeless woman that's like 18 or 17 or 18. She's accused of murdering her baby. And it struck me, as we have discussed about Cagney Lacey, how timely that is today. And how many women right now have been facing that, particularly under the new laws that are being passed.
Right.
Because people don't want women to have abortions and people want to criminalize childbirth and women's bodies. So it was really struck me kind of re-looking at that show. And again, the commitment to create a strong female character who's driving the story, because that's one of the criteria that we have. Like, what is a female-driven show? And it's literally women are driving the story. Women are telling the story. And both Cagney and Lacey and the trials of Rosie O'Neill fit that so well. And I was also struck in both shows how often you have scenes that are all women, and it's so shocking. Like, not just Cagney and Lacey, obviously talking to themselves and each other in the locker room or on the case, but literally the judge and the client and the lawyer and the accused.
Yeah,
and that was
a policy.
That was so shocking. It's shocking now. You don't see that.
We had a policy that all the writers were aware of it. That people of power, wherever possible, be played by women. But when we did the cancer episode, and I said, no, I want a man play the role. This is important information we're giving to women about their options as to mastectomy or lumpectomy or what to do. I want her to have a schlumpy looking guy to say, yeah, my doctor's like that, or even better looking than that doctor, so that will encourage women, or not discourage women, seeing their position. So, yeah, we were very aware all the time. I did not write the scripts. I wrote a couple of them, but that wasn't my job. My job was to hone them, to make sure we were on message. Quality control, not just quality control of production. It wasn't that I always made the right decisions. I didn't have to make the right decisions. I had a crew of 125 people who were committed to make whatever decision I made work. So if I say we go that way, shorter that way, somebody might point it out to me, but if I keep saying we're going that way, we're going to go that way and they'll make it work and it'll look good. What I did, my particular contribution, was on each scene, each piece of material, make sure we were on message. The example I used to like to tell, I was in New York for some promotional, on the phone in my hotel room, talking to the writing staff. And I'm looking for something to write on, give them a note. And I pulled out a piece out of the drawer, and there's a printed out laundry list for the hotel. And I start to use that. I use the back of that. And I look at it and say, hey, listen to this. You know, something that costs 89 cents to have a man's shirt pressed, and it's $2.40 for a woman. What the hell's that about? I was reading enough literature. I was paying enough attention. I was in feminist circles. I would go to New York, and Loretta and I would date, not sexually. I would escort her somewhere. I mean, she'd introduce me to, I was in Washington, D.C. She was taking me around to the Senate, introducing me to people. We weren't friends. We were business associates. And so that's the world I lived in. That's the world I traveled in. It's the world I became embroiled in. And I translate all that stuff into the material we were doing. And sometimes the actors didn't get it, and I had to explain it. One of my favorite stories is we were doing a show about the tastelessness of sexual humor in the workplace. Now, you could tell me what the crime story is. No, that's not what it's about. So Cagneys are on a case about date rape, and they come bursting through the doorway, arguing with each other on their way to their desk. Cagney thinks it's social work, and Lacey thinks it's what they should be doing. And Cagney says, if we were guys, they wouldn't decide this. And as they're arguing about it, the men come gathering around. And they say, hey, you know, it's a funny thing. Date rape, no. Her lips tell you no, but there's yes in her eyes. How's the guy supposed to know? And Samuels, lieutenant, their boss, says, no. You know what Helen's favorite movie was? That's his wife. Gone with the Wind. So how come when Rhett Butler carries Scarlett O'Hara upstairs, that's romance, when another guy does it? And Lacey looks at him and says, I get your pardon, Lieutenant, but if you don't know the difference between rape and romance, you have a serious problem. She walks away. And Harvey, the desk sergeant, for time of the month or what? Properly tasteless joke, sexual joke. Sharon Glass, who is relatively new to the series at that point, says, I want to say something. I just assaulted my partner. I'm John Wayne. I want to say something. Director says, get me a writer down here. Writer is being summoned and knows he or she is in trouble. The leading lady wants a line of dialogue, and it better be a good one. So you're prepared to serve. That's what writers do on show. The difference is Cagney Lacey. I'm there. And I sidle up to Sharon who I don't know that well. It's like episode 13. Okay. And I say, do you know what Cagney wants more than anything in the world? She says, no. What does she want? I said, she wants to be one of the boys. She wants to be accepted by everybody here. That's why Cagney not only doesn't say anything, but I'm going to go to a close-up of you saying nothing. And Sharon's eyes lit up. She's really a coos, isn't she? And I said, well, let's say she's flawed. And that was a seminal moment in the series. Then on, Sharon listens to my office every week. Give me another flaw. Give me another problem she's got. Now, that doesn't happen on a show where the producer doesn't have power. So I said, I said those things to Sharon Glass, and she looked at the show, or a manager looked at the show the following week, or 2 weeks later, and that close-up wasn't there. I'm dead meat. And I have control of the editing. That close-up was there. And I know the show better than anybody else. And I'm not afraid to argue. Nobody could say to me, well, you're defending your material. I didn't write it. Somebody else wrote it. I'm defending it because it's good. And I don't worry about the fact that everybody's shut down while I have this conversation. I know what it costs. It's not that bad. Whereas the writer's panicking. My God, they're shut down. I don't know what it costs, but it's not good. I know, big difference. What you have today, television, there's a lot of hype in it. And there's a lot of good things to be said for that. But they can never defend the material as if they didn't write it. And there's less objectivity. And there's a homogeneity to it that I like not to see in a show. I like a little bit more eclectic voices. I want to hear that writer who's had a terrible experience in his life that only he knows about or she knows about. And they come in and they tell me that story. And I say, let's make that a Cagney Lacey. That's powerful.
Yeah, it's not a freelance game anymore at all. Yeah.
I can tell you that total freedom is not all it's cracked up. I had a show on Cagney Lacey. We did an episode about the abortion clinic being bombed. And interesting complications. Lacey was visibly pregnant herself, was pro-abortion. Cagney, pro-abortion, but Catholic. And her father's giving a bad time to her. Says, there's a lot of Irish up top. Their bosses are Irish at the cops. Better watch what you say about this stuff. And he says, if I talk for someone who wanted to be a nun, some good stuff like that. I get 3 pages in single space memo from broadcast standards. Gilbert Steele, I called him stainless steel. All these thou shalt nots. And you can't have both Cagney Lacey be pro-abortion. Stainless, gather your forces. Bring me every executive you have in this field that you want to bring. I'm coming in, and as soon as you can put them together, and we're going to have one meeting on this subject and one to get old. I will tell you right now, neither Cagney or Lacey will ever be anything but pro-choice. They are not going to defy 70% of women in America. Now, that's all making me the hero. Let me tell you the bad parts. I walked into the meeting. The head of broadcasting, Gilbert Steele's boss by 3 degrees, was there. Walked up to me with a cup of coffee, handed it to me and said, Barney, understand something. You are among fans. Tell me when it's non-negotiable for you. The air went out of my balloon. I was steeled for a fight, and there was a fight. Out of that kind of friction, out of that kind of confrontation, often comes very, very good stuff. And in this case, it didn't happen. And that episode is one of our weakest episodes. It has nice stuff in it, all the things I told you about, the highlights. But it's not strong enough. It's not good enough. Not powerful. And that's my fault. And because I didn't have to beat anybody up.
You like the fight. We've learned
the last year or two, if anything, that's what the show suffered from. Said I was punching my way out of paper bags. It was harder to make really exciting shows.
Yeah.
And Rosie was a bit like, I had carte blanche on Rosie. So it lacks, I think it lacks a little bit of that chemical fiery thing, but it's a good show. I think I mentioned you before we went on the air. I've been trying for 25 years to get Rosie back on DVD or on cable. It's now on Amazon and it's out on DVD finally. So I'm watching it on Amazon. Sharon Bless, my wife, never, ever, ever watches her. I got her to watch the 2-parter about alcoholism because we had a screening and she had to attend it. To my knowledge, the only 2 episodes of Cagney Lacey she ever saw. Does not watch her own work. And I'm running the show all by myself in the living. And she hears this voice. She recognizes. And she comes tiptoeing in and sticking her head around and she looked at me and says, I was really thin. And comes in and sits down, watches all 16 episodes of the first season, practically at once. And we can both tell you, it's a good show. I commend it to your viewers. I'm very proud of it. Very, very proud. And listen, the reality is I'm proud of most. The other times I did some favors that I should never have done. I should never be a team player. No, that's not who I am. My father-in-law, Barney Rosenzweig, was a team player. He was a running guard for the University of Southern California. And he always was taking it for the team. He filled up a sound stage of the picture that wasn't ready because Big Zadig needed a stage filled up. Or he would edit the picture too fast and get it out. And when the pictures were bad, he got blamed. I would say, oh, well, he was doing us a favor. Nobody remembered that. So I made that mistake a couple of times, but not often. I try to avoid that.
I know it's getting late for you, and I really appreciate you taking this time to talk with us.
Listen, I'm talking about my favorite subject.
I know. We could talk all day and all night.
Yeah.
Sharon, I think we have to do 3 questions, and then we'll talk about where people can find you online after that. All right. So these are 3 questions we give to guests on our shows. So the first one is, what is the 80s ladies TV show not of your own creation that resonated with you in the 80s? And so this is hard.
Moonlighting.
Oh, Moonlighting. There you go. You were fast. Oh, my God. Right out of the gate.
I love Moonlight.
All right. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Good one. All right.
So next, can you name any of your favorite current 21st century female-driven television shows or modern-day TV ladies?
Sure. Well, I'm trying to, this is not necessarily in order, but it's pretty close to being in order. Dead to Me, Hacks, Orphan Black. Those are 3 good shows.
Those are good.
Yep. You have to understand, I also almost always watch female-driven shows. It's my first choice. I did not like Mayor Whittingham, whoever that was. I didn't like it not because of her, although I had certain objections. That was, I didn't like it because it's such an ugly view of America. If that's who America is, Ronald Reagan, Donald Trump, so dark and pessimistic. It lacked any redeeming guidance whatsoever at all.
Those are good ones. We're all.
I named 3.
You named 3. That's good. That's a good amount. And I like those. They're all very different too.
That to me is wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, that gal, Applegate or something, is that her name?
Christina Applegate?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
I love her.
What a performance. And G's smart.
Mm-hmm.
I love her. She's nobody better than G's smart, which you know.
Well, speaking of 80s TV ladies, I'm not sure that anybody like us who watched Designing Women back when it was airing.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Would have thought that she possibly would have been the person. I mean, They were all good, but, And
by the way, I should have said Designing Women before I said what I said. Because first of all, I'm very good friends with Linda Bloodworth and
all right, we want to have her on the show, so you might have to hook us up.
Also, she's fabulous. She is fabulous. I also could have mentioned my own show, Christy. You said I couldn't mention my own
said you can't mention your own shows.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
We have to do it for everybody. It's not just you.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. What's the next question?
Last but not least, what's the most action hero or television kind of moment that you've had in your life? I mean, you've had so many incredible moments, and actually maybe this is sort of redundant because I can think of a couple of things, especially things related back to your days at USC that I guess might qualify, but is there something that kind of is at the top of your list of something that seems like looking back on it is right out of an action movie or action TV show or
even a drama, like, oh my God, this is a scripted moment. You couldn't have scripted this moment better.
I think if I had to pick, I picked a few, along with Tony Barr, who was my programming executive at CBS, Cagney Lacey. I was fortunate in that Tony was an older man than I was. And I think he had this job. He'd already been a producer. So he knew a little bit about the lingo. And I think he had taken this job at CBS as a step to retirement. So he wasn't after my job. He wasn't out to make any bones. He wanted to make his point, and then he would listen to me. And some of the best spiels I ever gave to a network executive. Once, a picture that he fought me on, I won't go into the details because you're running late, but he fought me on it all the way. And I finally said, look, order one less episode. Just won't make it. That's my solution. Instead of making 22, we'll make 21. Do me something, I don't want to, you want me to make chocolate? I want to make vanilla. I can't make it chocolate. Can't do it. So he said, Barney, we're not going to cut up back an episode. Go ahead and make it your way. You'll learn from it, and we'll talk next season. Made the show, screened it at CBS. The lights came on, and Tony Barr stood up and says, "This is an Emmy Award-winning show. Sharon Bless is fantastic. I was wrong. You were right." I said, "Tony, you realize you're giving me a loaded gun for next season?" He says, "God help me, I know it. But you got it." So that was a pretty good moment. And,
that is a pretty good moment.
gosh.
That's a pretty great moment.
I guess nothing beats calling you up and saying, having a press conference, standing there on the dais with Harvey Shepard and having him say, essentially, "We were wrong. And Mrs. Rosenzweig's little boy was right." But that's as good as it gets. I've had a lot of them. Not enough of them, but I've had a lot.
That is fantastic. Okay, so people can find you at cagneyandlacey.com through because your blog is off of there, and your book is available off of there and at Amazon.
I believe at Apple too.
Okay.
The Cagney Lacey site has been stagnant for a long time. We don't do anything to it. I don't have a webmaster. I don't know how to do that stuff. I write a blog. I send it to Sharon's best friend. She puts it on the site. But you can read it there. It looks pristine, looks pretty. But I love writing them. I have a good time. I review television. I review theater. Occasionally a movie. I don't see very many movies. And I write about my family and about stuff that's going on. And I think it's awfully good. And then I'm hoping to come up with a book again, but I don't know when that'll happen.
All right. And Cagney and Lacey can be streamed at Amazon and Apple TV. And Trials of Rosie O'Neill can be streamed on Amazon.
On Amazon. You know, MGM owns the underlying rights to Cagney and Lacey. And now that Amazon's been has purchased MGM, I would think that's why we're suddenly on Amazon.
Cagney and Lacey can also be streamed on Roku TV.
Okay.
And according to the internet, Roku channel is also streaming the Trials of Rosie O'Neill. So
really?
There you go. If you have a Roku subscription.
I have an independent distributor doing that. They never send me money. They send me a little bit now and then. Not very often. Never enough.
Never enough.
Never enough and not often enough.
Anyway, this has been such a pleasure. I hope we can have you back on the show at some point. And you have kicked off our dive into Cagney and Lacey so lovingly and excitingly and with so many great stories that we're really excited.
Well, I just apologize for taking so long on the early stuff. It's very current in my mind because of the book I'm writing. And you asked a couple of questions that triggered that. So I went for it.
I think that's great. And we'll happily send you the video and the audio.
Thank you. I'd love to have it. My theory is you can't tell the story of King Arthur unless you explain how he got Excalibur. So I think your questions are good. Ask people how they got started and how they got there, because otherwise, it seems like sort of a miracle that just coming out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And all of us come from somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious because you talked about where this is personal. And so if you don't want to say, but you talked about always calling your mom when something big happened.
Yeah. My mom was my biggest fan. And she liked to talk about the show when it was over. My mom was a strong woman, very smart. She was much smarter than my dad, much smarter than me. She had a fabulous vocabulary she didn't use. She could do the New York Times crossword puzzle in minutes, but she didn't use it in her vocabulary. For this game she liked to play. She never got to go to college. She was self-educated. She took care of a very, very psychologically damaged mother who was in and out of institutions all of my mother's life, electrical shock therapy. I think my mother, by design, willed herself not to go crazy. She white-knuckled the whole thing. She knew she had to preserve her sanity, and that was her primary goal. But she was had troubles, but never anything that impacted me. Except here's a relationship. This is why I called her. My mother didn't, I think I told you, my mother didn't go out. She didn't go anywhere. I'm the leading actor of the school play. I'm the head cheerleader in high school. I'm the MC of the variety show. My mother never saw this. So when the evening was over, I would come home and perform the whole evening over again for my mother. So she got to see the show.
That's marvelous.
So that was sort of our relationship.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
My dad occasionally went, but my mother, wow.
That's kind of beautiful.
I bought her first store-bought dress many years later.
Wow. All right.
She wore it all the time.
Well, I hope she was proud of you.
She was. My mom was, I was her favorite. And I was also the oldest, first grandson. I was the first boy. A privileged life in that sense. We're not the wealth in our family, but there was a wealth of affection and love. I was a very loved kid.
Yeah, that's the most important thing.
There's no question about it. No question about it. I'm very secure about it. One of the reasons I'm sure it's one of the reasons I was secure as I am. I'm very secure in who I am. I can't even think of something I'm insecure about. I'm sure there's something, but I don't want to go there. But I that has to all come from, where did I get the guts to go in front of that USC crowd? Where does that come from?
You're the come from behind kid, though. I mean, I'm telling you, that's like your sweet spot is, it's all falling apart. Let me step in. That's where I want to step right in. And
it's an easy way to interpret it now. At the time, it didn't
feel that way.
I didn't think any of that. I was just treading water to survive. It was something. We'll talk about this more at the next time.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And thank you. You guys are terrific to talk to.
Oh, thank you. And take care, please.
Take care.
I will. Bye-bye.
Hey, Susan, what time is it?
It's audiography time, Sharon.
Woohoo! First is Cagney and Lacey and Me by Barney Rosenzweig, and From Reverence to Rape, The Treatment of Women in the Movies by Molly Haskell.
And for The Trials of Rosie O'Neill, you can find that streaming on Amazon and Roku for now, as far as I know. Just a little information about that show. It was created by Beth Sullivan and Joe Kakasi, produced by Barney Rosenzweig. It ran for 2 seasons and 34 episodes on CBS from September 17th, 1990 to May 30th, 1992. It starred Sharon Gless, Dorian Harewood, Ron Rifkin, who I love, George Ann Johnson, Liesl Riefel, and Robert Wagner. Ed Asner and David Rash joined the cast in season 2. I was very excited about it. Oh, and in season 1, episode 15, called Reunion, Tyne Daly guest stars, along with Carole King, the singer-songwriter who also wrote the theme song for The Trials of Rosie O'Neill, and Gretchen Corbett. I'm also going to shout out Weirding Way Media, which is run by 2 friends of ours. Rich has been on their shows many times. I've now been on one of the shows called The Culture Cast and The Projection Booth. They're kind of movie review shows, and they've been around a long time. And I called them when I was starting this and said, okay, what do I need to do? Like, where do I start? How do I get a logo? And they both were incredibly helpful. And Chris in particular, basically kind of right at the moment we were like, we got to figure out where we're hosting, basically called me and said, listen, would you want to come on and be part of a network that Mike and I are going to start? Anyway, so we were the first Not Them podcast on their network, which is called Weirding Way. And so you guys should check it out because it's awesome. And please support us on patreon.com/80s TV Ladies. You can get special content and you get stickers. Stickers! They're super cute stickers. We just started making them. I'm really excited.
Just a reminder, the privacy and civil rights of pregnant people and women are still at risk and outlawed in many areas of America. Laws have been enacted that have stripped away the right to have a safe and legal abortion for millions of people in this country. Restricting access to comprehensive reproductive care, including abortion, threatens the health and independence of all Americans.
Please support your local healthcare providers and also call your local, state, and federal representatives to let them know you want abortion rights and equal access to healthcare for all. If you want or need help, please go to abortionfunds.org. And if you can, donate to help thepinkhouseFund.com. All of these will be on our website. Ladies and gentlemen, be sure to tune in to our next episode where we have the amazing Tyne Daly, 6-time Emmy winner, 1-time Tony winner, Tyne Daly. Yes, that Tyne Daly. We can't wait.
In the meantime, we hope 80s TV Ladies brings you joy and laughter and lots of fabulous new and old shows to watch, all of which will lead us forward toward being amazing ladies of the 21st century.
Did I tell you that Tyne Daly's coming on our next episode, Sharon?
I know, right?